All right, guys, we've been showing you all kinds of different antlers on how to score them properly, officially, in as close as you'd like or as simple as you'd like. This time, we're doing a 5-point side, but it is a non-typical. I know this isn't gonna be one of your super difficult non-typicals. We're gonna make a whole nother video for that on how to determine what's a G1, 2, G3, whatever the crazy stuff that you can see on some of these deer are. But this is going to be very similar to your scoring your typical side, and just imagine it as a typical side, because what you're going to do is you're going to get a main beam measurement. As always, you're going to get each G1 tines, so G1, 2, 3, and 4. You're also going to get your 4 circumference measurements, and then you can see here I've got an abnormal and another abnormal. And so a kicker, extra tine, extras, whatever you want to call them, in the books they're called abnormals. So basically I've already taken my notepad here and I've written that all down. I've got a main beam measurement, G1, G2, G3, G4, circumference 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then down here I've got, for non-typical, you're gonna have these as an abnormal. So AB, 1 and 2. So I'll go through and measure everything normal, and then I'll go back and I'll measure my abnormals. So all you're gonna need, you can do it with all kinds of different tape measures and everything. I've got an official Pope & Young tape measure here. They actually make 2 different ones. They make the measuring tape, then they make the circumference measuring tape. If you're gonna spend the money to buy them, I would recommend buying both of them because it's gonna make it easier, and I'll show you guys how. Next thing you're gonna need is a wire with a clip. That's gonna be able to, I'll show you guys how to do that. It's gonna mark your length and your measurements, okay? What I like to, and before I go, you don't have to have these things. I mean, it makes it a lot easier, and if you're trying to be official, it's gonna be the closest you're going to get to being official by having the proper tools. You can use a cloth tape, you can use a regular tape measure and a piece of string or something. Just make sure if it's things that can stretch, a lot of times you're going to end up actually making your deer smaller than what it actually should be, because whatever your measurement is stretching. So what I like to do is I take my tape measure, I take a couple pieces of tape, and I'm just going to tape it to the table. It makes it a little easier for me to lay my measurements down hands-free. I don't think this deer is going to have a 28-inch beam, but you never know. But we'll mark it out there at 28, and we're going to start with our main beam. So sheds are the same as when they're on the head. It just, in my head, it makes it a little easier when I set it up and I look how it's going to actually be on a deer's head. And what you're going to do is you're going to follow your main beam, the center of your main beam. So right in here, and that line is going to follow all the way down. And if you come like this, it's going to come all the way down to back in here. And you measure exactly from your burr. So with this wire, you have 2 different sides. You have a flat side, and then you have a hook side. I hate the hook side, but it works very, very well for your main beam measurements, which is probably why they made it that way. So I'm going to go follow my line just like I just showed you guys. I'm going to go right to the base of his burr. So I'm not going to the top of his burr like that. I'm not going down below his burr to where it meets or anything. I'm going just where that hooks onto the burr. Okay, and that can be kind of tricky to hold on to a little bit because you need to get it down to, from right there, you need to get it down to the antler as quick as you can. Okay, so I've got it hooked in my center point right there. I'm going to pinch it down right there, and all you're going to do is you're going to gradually follow this line just like that, and I'm pinching with one thumb and guiding with the other one until I can pinch it off, and right there like that. So I'm following, as opposed to just going along the edges like this, I'm actually following the contour of these lines. They're good guides for you. Pinch it down, hold it, go to my next one, and you want to be going, like I said, directly through the center of his main beam. You don't want to go below it, and you don't want to go above it, because you're either going to make it shorter or way longer. So I'm following the center all the way to the end, following every curve he's got all the way to here. And then I'm going to take my clip like I just did. I guide that to where it needs to be. I'm going to pull it over, make sure that my clip is just right on the edge of where the tip of his main beam ends. Maybe. There we go. Right there. there. Now I'm going to take this, got one big long measurement here, and I'm going to lay it down. And I have 21 2/8. The reason you hear me thinking is because this is a good tip for you guys. If you're measuring, you want to be able to know what a 16th gives you or does not give you. So he is at 21 4/16 to be exact. So everything's measured in eighths, as we've discussed in many other videos. You have 21 2/8 is what would be even, but since he has the next 16th, we're going to go up to 21 3/8. No, this is not a trick to give yourself more eighths. What it's actually doing is, I mean, it's from the rule book. So you get the following 16th, you get the larger eighth. And that's going to allow you to round up a little bit. So right there, like I said, we're at 21 2/8 at the 16th though, so he gets 21 3/8. So first one, 21 3/8. Now we're going to go up to his first tine, which would be his G1. And like I said, we're going to go over other non-typicals. They're a little trickier than this one to determine which one is your actual G1 and which one is an abnormal. But for this one, it's pretty self-explanatory. This is your G1 right here. This is your abnormal, because this one is coming straight into your main beam. This one is growing into the tine and then the main beam. So what we're going to do is, to see where you're going to measure from, you need to find the point in which this tine stops swelling. So if you just took up your main beam and subtracted all the tines off of it and just drew flat lines on it, that's basically what we're doing. So we're going to pinch our wire right here where there's no more swelling, and we're going to pinch our wire right down here where there's no more swelling. What that does is it tells us exactly where the top of the main beam should be, or close to. So you can either take a pencil and mark right there, it'll wipe right off. You could put a piece of tape under here and mark on that. You mark on the bottom of your wire. In this case, for video's sake and not boring you guys too much, I'm going off of the marks on the antler. So I know where that started, right there. And like we've done with everything else so far, we're just gonna follow the center of his tine straight up. Just like so. And I'm gonna clip it right at the tip, okay? So now, what I'll show you guys, a little trick, just for your eye guard, you don't get to do this with everything else, is that measurement is directly off the back of his tine, okay? Which is commonly going to be your longer measurement of the two. If we went off the front here, we could just see where, if you just want to check real quickly where you think it's going to be about your measurement, you can see if it's any longer or shorter. For instance, the back was longer on that one, that's why I left the clip. So I get the longer measurement. Right there, we are at 4 3/8. So our first tine measurement is 4 3/8. I'm gonna go up to our next one, same thing. These tines are pretty close together, but you can still get a decent idea of right in here is where about the swelling stops to down here where the swelling stops. So right there you can see that is where our line and our measurement is going to be, directly from where the center of this tine comes down and meets it. So I've got a couple discolorations right there that I'm going to use. I'm going to go right up the center of his tine. Just like that. Keep going. And I'm using the same tactic I did on the main beam, just pinch it with one hand or finger or something, whatever's easiest for you. Hold it down and pinch it with the other one and guide. So right there, we've got our G2 measurement. And that's going to be 6 7/8. And for your tines, guys, I know the eye guard was the one that was a little bit different. You're always going to measure from the outside of your tine that meets your main beam. You don't get to go from the inside, or like that genuine inside, or I guess the sides technically. You're going from the outside of the main beam and the outside of the tine, okay? So that was our G2. We do the same thing here. Find where the swelling ends, right there. Find where the swelling ends on this end, same thing, right about there. So now You can see on this one, it's wide. You'd think that the center is right down in here somewhere, but you got to follow, like I said, you follow the center of your line and it comes down to right in here. So right there, I've got a mark. I'm going to come up like so. Come up, keep pinching it. And the main thing is, as long as you're pinching it down and you don't feel it slide or move over something, you should be good. It might take you a little bit of time to get used to it. If you need to go back, just remeasure it, double check your measurements. Right there. And then we have 7 4/8. Next one, same thing. Find where the swelling ends on either side, which is right about there. Look at where your mark is going to be, or mark it, whatever's easiest for you, or depending on how accurate you're wanting to be. If you're trying to be very accurate, mark it. I'm just trying to show you guys as quickly as possible how to do this in detail. So right there, it's going to be our last actual tine measurement. And that one's going to be 5 7/8. Now, I had said that I was going to do my circumferences and everything and then go back, but like I said, it's a lot easier when you have two tapes. You have a circumference tape and then you have this tape. I don't want to have to pull this off and retape it back down, so I'm going to do these abnormals real quick. So on an abnormal, you're going to do the same basis of what we just did on this, but we've got an extra tine here, right here, okay? You have to find where that swelling into the tine or into the main beam, wherever that would be, you have to try to find. This one is easy because I can see where the swelling ends right here and I can draw a line. But now, since it combines with the main beam down here as well, I need to try to find where the straightest line of the base is going to be. So it's going to be somewhere like this, and I'm going to try to find some swelling that is, there's no swelling out here. So I'm going to pinch my wire like that, and this is going to be a little funky, but I'm going to go down to about, I'm right on a knob on his antler, so it's going to make it kind of tough for me. But right in there is where, on the bottom of my wire, it's going to be right in here is where my measurement starts and measures up, okay? So I've got a brown spot right there, actually two of them. I go right in between them and measure straight up just like that. And for our abnormal one, we have 2 4/8. And we're going to do the same thing on this one. Cool little drop tine here. This one's even easier than the last one. You're going to take where the swelling ends, just like on how we did these tines, just going down the opposite way. Find the swelling, find this swelling, make your mark, and now follow it right up. Now, if it's under an inch, you don't get the tine, you don't get the measurement, okay? So you don't get a couple eighths here and there. You only get it if it's an inch. And with that, so this one was 1 5/8. So I'm going to write that down, but I'm also going to show you guys, for instance, okay, this one, this is obviously, it's 1 5/8. We just measured that. If this was a tine that was super fat, okay, so let's say it was out here, if the length of your tine is not greater than the width of the tine, it doesn't count either. So for instance, if this was 1 6/8 wide here, and it was 1 5/8 long, I don't get that measurement. As long as it is smaller than the length measurement that you just got, which is 1 5/8, which if I really wanted to be exact, I would have kept my clip on there, but I can show you guys where the end of the tine is, right there. As long as it is smaller, we're barely even doing 1 inch. So as long as your width is not larger than the length of the tine, you get it, okay? So now we are going to do our circumference. I'm going to take my tape measure here. And the circumference measurement is actually, or the circumference tape measure is actually quite a bit easier because it doesn't start with right here. It doesn't start right at the end of it. It actually starts like up here where 0 is. But I don't have the other one, so we're gonna do it like this. First mass measurement is gonna be from your G1 and your base, in between the two. What you gotta do though, because they like to make rules tricky, is I'm gonna measure around this, and like for our eye guard, we got to take the largest measurement. For your mass measurements, you have to take the smallest. So I'm gonna take multiple measurements here. I've got 4 and 6/8. Excuse me, 4 and 5/8. Yeah, 4 and 5/8, 4 and 6/8, and 4 and 6/8. So the smallest of those ones is 4 and 5/8. So I'll write that down. Now we're gonna go up and do the same thing. Between your G1 and your G2 is your next mass measurement. If you have a 4-point side, you still get 4 measurements. Go check out our other how to score a 4-point side if you wanna learn how to do that one. So right here we've got 3 and 6/8, 3 and 6/8, 3 and 6/8. So all 3 and 6/8. Next one is between your G2 and your G3. When they're palmated like this, sometimes it makes it a little bit easier, but that's a whole nother story as to determine whether or not it's an actual tine or not. But in this situation, it is. So we've got 4 and 2/8. There's really only room to make one measurement, so 4 and 2/8. Then your last one, and this one will be a little bit tricky because you have this here that does not add to your mass. You're gonna go on either side of it and see whichever one is the smallest. So I've got 4 and 1/8, then I'll go on this side real quick and measure as much as we can. We got 4 and 4 even. All right, so 4 even was our smallest of the two. So just like that, we got that whole thing measured. Now I'm gonna take your handy dandy smartphone, because everybody has one now, and pull up my calculator. All right, so what I like to do, you can do this whatever way your brain thinks easier. I go down and do all of my whole numbers first. I write that number down, and then I'll go down and do all my 8s and add those up, and then reduce from there. So to start off, we have 21 plus 4 plus 6 plus 7 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. That is 61. So that's our first whole number. Then we're gonna go down and do our 8s here. So we have 3 plus 3 plus 7 plus 4 plus 7 plus 5 plus 6 plus 2 plus 4 plus 5. 46/8. So this is a great example of why having 8s can be such a big deal. If your deer has a lot of 8s, that's very helpful because it adds up in the end. So in this situation here, we have to divide 46 by 8. So that's going to be 5. So you're going to get 8 can go into 46 5 times evenly. So we've got 5 whole inches, so 66. And then we have 6/8 left over. So 66 and 6/8. Simple math class for you today. If they would have taught you how to do math in school with shed antlers, I'm sure you would have done a lot better in math class. At least that's how I think. So we got a 66 and 6/8 shed. That deer actually ended up going like 190s a couple years later. Freaking giant. But anyways, that is how you score a non-typical, a simple non-typical antler. Hope this helps. Go back, rewind it, save it. Let us know which one you want us to score next.